Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how to use the sidebar in Safari on your Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 2,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now, the sidebar in Safari is the tool that appears on the left side of the Safari window. So for instance, I could bring it up here in Safari by clicking on the Show Sidebar button, which usually appears right to the right of the red, yellow, and green dots. You click that and then you get the sidebar. Now, how the sidebar looks and works depends a lot on which version of Safari you've got. Apple has changed it a lot over the years and probably will continue to change it. In this video, I'm using Safari version 17.3.1 in macOS Sonoma. Now, the sidebar actually has 3 different modes. One mode is to show your tabs and tab groups, and that's what you've got here. But you can also switch to a mode that shows your bookmarks. You can go back with this back button at the top left, and then a third mode is to show your reading list articles. So these are kind of like bookmarks, but it's just one list of specific web pages that you decided you want to get back to at some point. Now, you may notice that there are 2 more items, Shared with You and iCloud tabs. These are both part of iCloud, and you may or may not have these turned on. If you have them both turned on, you may see them here, but notice how they don't actually change what's in the sidebar. If I choose Shared with You, it actually shows the content on the right, and the sidebar remains showing the tabs. If I choose iCloud tabs, likewise, it shows the content on the right, not in the sidebar. The sidebar is still showing your tabs and tab groups. So really, there are only 3 modes here: the tab and tab groups mode, bookmarks mode, and reading list mode. So my first tip is there are different ways to bring up the sidebar and to close it. I showed you how the button here opens and closes the sidebar, but you could also do the same thing by going to View, and then you could do Show Sidebar right here. Notice the keyboard shortcut is Shift-Command-L, and this will both show the sidebar and the same command will hide the sidebar. But you could also use 2 other shortcuts right underneath, Show Bookmark Sidebar and Show Reading List Sidebar. These will show the sidebar and switch it to one of these 2 modes. There's another way to bring up the sidebar, and that only works if you have the Safari window in full screen mode. So I'm going to click on the green button here and go to full screen mode for Safari. Now in this mode, if I move my pointer over here to the left side, it will automatically bring it up. Now in this case, I've got bookmarks mode. I can actually choose a bookmark, and by doing so, it will not only go to that bookmark, but it will dismiss the sidebar. So it's a quick way to choose bookmarks. But also, if I bring it up by going to the left and then simply move the pointer to the right, it will go away instantly. So it's kind of a way to temporarily bring up the sidebar. Whereas if you click on this button here, it will bring it up and it will remain there until you click again. The same with the keyboard shortcuts and menu items. Now when you do have the sidebar open, you aren't stuck with this size. You can actually click and drag this line here. So you can make it larger or smaller. So if you've got long items in here and you want to read them all, you can give yourself some more space. Or if you want to kind of minimize it, you can drag it as far to the left as you can so you have more space for the web pages. Now, instead of bringing up the sidebar and then going to the bottom here to go to bookmarks or reading list, you can jump directly to bookmarks and reading list by using the menu items in the View menu. So you've got Show Bookmark Sidebar and Show Reading List Sidebar with the corresponding keyboard shortcuts, Control-Command-1 and Control-Command-2. So even though the hidden sidebar now is in the tabs mode, you can open it up and go directly to bookmarks using this item right here. And you can jump to the reading list by using this one right here. And if you're already in that mode and you choose the same item again or use the same keyboard shortcut, it closes the sidebar completely. So you can use Control-Command-1 to bring up bookmarks and Control-Command-2 to close it. Now what about Shared with You and iCloud tabs? When you select that, it replaces everything on the right here, all the tabs you've got, with Shared with You or iCloud tabs. So for instance, Shared with You, these are items that you've got in Messages that include links. So if a friend of you sends you lots of links and you want to get to one of them, you could of course click on it in Messages, but you could also go to Shared with You and see all of those right there along with the preview. iCloud tabs will show you web pages you have open in other devices. So in other words, on your iPhone, your iPad, maybe another Mac. So Share with You can be disabled in the Messages app, and iCloud tabs can be disabled system settings. So if you don't see them, that might be why. But as far as dealing with them here, you can see all of your tabs are gone, and you're basically asked to choose one of these and jump to that page. But notice that since you have to be in tabs view in a sidebar in order to select one of these, you can simply select your tab group here and it will return you to it. Even if you have multiple tab groups, let's open up a new empty tab group here, you can go to shared with you and then notice how I can choose either one of these tab groups and it will jump back to it. Now, shared with you only shows up here if you select this item in the sidebar. But you can also get to it by going to View, and then you can use Hide or Show Shared with You. So you've got a keyboard shortcut for that, but there isn't a keyboard shortcut for iCloud tabs. If you choose iCloud tabs, the only way to get out of it is to choose one of them or to click on one of the tab groups here in the sidebar. You can also access iCloud tabs on the Start page. So I'm going to create a new tab using Command-T, and I've got my settings in Safari set to New Tabs Open with a Start page. But I could also use Bookmarks Show Start Page to jump to it in any tab. And you can see here I've got a variety of things in the Start page, including Shared with You and the iCloud tabs at the bottom. You can customize this by clicking at the bottom right and choosing what's shown on the Start page. So the sidebar isn't the only place to get to Shared with You and iCloud tabs. You can do it in the Start page as well. Now, a lot of people may only use the sidebar for bookmarks. It's a handy place to see all of your bookmarks and to be able to choose one and jump to that page. But you can also do some things with bookmarks here. For instance, I can drag them around to reorder them, move them into folders or out of folders. I can control click or two-finger click on a trackpad, right click on a mouse, and from here I can choose open a new tab, open a new window, open in a tab group. I can rename the bookmark, I can edit the address, and I can even delete bookmarks from here. And I can create new folders. There's a lot you can do to maintain your bookmarks in the sidebar. However, I often hear of people getting frustrated trying to maintain their bookmarks in the sidebar and they don't realize that you've got a better way to do it. If you go to Bookmarks and then go to Edit Bookmarks, it gives you this nice big view here where you can much more easily edit the bookmarks, the name, the URL, move things around, create new folders, search through them and all of that. So if you want to quickly rename something or move it, doing it in the sidebar is fine. But if you really want to kind of work on managing your bookmarks and spend some time there, then I recommend going to Bookmarks, Edit Bookmarks instead. Another interesting thing that you can do with bookmarks is you can drag and drop to or from the sidebar. It's kind of weird though to drag an item from the sidebar over to the main part of Safari because you could just click on it. So I'm not sure why you would drag it. But you can actually drag the other way, which makes more sense. So if you see a link here and you don't necessarily want to go to it right now, but you want to add it as a bookmark, you could drag that link into Bookmarks like that. You could even select the URL here, and as long as it's selected as text, you can drag it into the Bookmarks sidebar as well. The same thing is true with the reading list. Bring up the reading list here, you can drag and drop from the right side into the reading list, and it will appear there. Now, one thing people don't realize that they can do in the sidebar is they could search. They could search both bookmarks and the reading list. So where's the search field? All you need to do is use your magic mouse or magic trackpad and then scroll down and you can see here you've got a search field. So you can search the reading list for something that's handy if you've got a lot there. It also works in bookmarks. You can scroll down like that and you've got search bookmarks there. Now there's an interesting feature in bookmarks where you can actually see a preview of everything in a folder. So for instance, here under favorites, I've got these three items in the folders there. If I control click on it, I can choose show folder contents. And look what happens. It expands those items there kind of like they're in a reading list. And it shows you a little preview, either the site icon or it tries to generate something from a photo in the article. And you get a little bit more information about each item there. Use the back button here to go back and you can see everything's just as before. And one of the main things you might want to do with the reading list is to save offline. When you choose this, that particular item is then saved to your cache so it could be viewed even if you disconnect from the internet. And you can control click again and don't save to actually unload it. You can go to Safari and Settings and then under Advanced you could change the reading list so that articles are automatically saved for offline reading. If you scroll down, you not only get a search field, but you get a toggle between listing all of the items in your reading list or just the unread ones. If you go to one of these, it's going to mark it as read, but it will still be in the list as all until you go to the context menu and remove it. Now, you can also mark an item as read if it's not been read. And you can also mark an item as unread if it has been read. So you could decide whether an item appears in the unread list or not. Now, my last tip has to do with using the sidebar with the tab mode. So you can see here I can easily use this to, say, switch back to the tabs. If I say go to iCloud tabs, I can go back to my tabs. But I can also use it to switch between tab groups. So if I create a new tab group here, I can switch between these tab groups by selecting it. But you can do even more than that, because you can open up a tab group and get a list of all the tabs. And I can use this list to switch between tabs instead of actually clicking at the top of the Safari window. So I can switch between tabs like that. Now, that could be incredibly useful if you have a lot of tabs open. So imagine 10 or 20 or more tabs. It's hard to find the one you want, but in the sidebar, it might be a lot easier since you have more space to read the names. Plus, you could also drag and drop these. So I can reorder the tabs using the sidebar than using the tabs themselves. I can even drag and drop to another tab group like that. And if you control click on the tabs here in the sidebar, you can do all sorts of various things to them, including closing the tabs, closing everything but that tab, closing all the tabs below this one, moving a tab to a window, copying the link from the tab, or choose Arrange Tabs By, and it will resort all the tabs so you can get them in alphabetical order. Now, I mentioned before how the sidebar has changed a lot with almost every version of Safari, and I expect it to continue to do so. So if you're using an older version of Safari, you're probably not seeing the same things that I'm showing here. But what would be nice to see in the future is to have all of these items appear in the sidebar. For instance, not have Shared With You and iCloud tabs show up on the right. There's no reason that they can't appear in the sidebar just like the reading list does. In fact, I have to think that's why they're listed there at the bottom of the sidebar, is that they really do belong here and eventually will migrate to this side. So if you're watching this in the future, keep in mind that while some of these tips may still work, others may need to adjust to how the sidebar works in the version of Safari you're currently using. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.